but you're tracking your macros and you're learning that one Oreo is not a problem, even
Right.
if it's every single day. The problem is when you eat the whole sleeve of Oreos and then you say, screw it. And you also eat the cookies and the brownies and the ice cream as well.
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for joining the first Optimal podcast. Really, really excited. We have Lindsey Mathews on with us. She is a perimenopause coach, and we've been in contact since early in the summer, and excited to get this episode out to everybody. Following her content for a while, I definitely encourage you guys to do that. That'll be in the show notes today, unpacking a lot of her tips and information. And then we're going to get into all types of stuff, her programs and what she does, as well as her expertise. But again, like many of our guests, what I can't recommend enough, definitely check out her info when we'll dive into that today. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Cool. Good stuff. Well, we were talking a while ago, and I just, I started looking at your content, and, I think it's definitely something that seems to be more of a emerging topic in women's health.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, better that it's happening now, but definitely too late in the game. And there's a bunch of stats we might get to, as relative to, services and research and medical interventions for women. But I really like what you're doing in your in the space. And I was just curious if you wouldn't mind. I know you have a bunch of different, accreditations and background and such. And so I won't bore the audience with me reading off the laundry list, but if you would like to maybe unpack a little bit of your personal story.
Sure.
What got you here? What inspired you to do what you're doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a long history in online coaching. I like to joke that I've been in online coaching since before there was quote unquote online. I started in 2004, back when all we had was email, like probably AOL was what most people used.
Yep.
And it was just like, some fitness and nutrition tips and workouts written up in emails back and forth between clients. Everything was word of mouth. Over time, as social media came about, things obviously just grew with my business. I've done a lot of different things with different supplement companies and, there's just different ways getting my name out there. I've had online challenges. I've done lots of in-person programs as well. I've have a history in bodybuilding also. And I started competing in 2010. And this is a big part of my story into why we really focus on hormones, wellness, perimenopausal women. I am turning 45 next month. So I have found that my clientele kind of ages with me, which is, I've actually taken an average age of my clients and it's right about how old I am, which is, I find so interesting. But I competed for about 9 years. And in 2018 was my last show. And after I competed, I gained 50 pounds in that following year. And so I equate it to just my body being under high stress for so long. I was very, very lean for about 9 months. I had a long competition journey, and I try to relate that to just like the general population women and say, you don't have to have competed to have a body that's under stress. Like your stress could come from a messy divorce, a death in the family, even positive stress, like maybe an accelerated career advancement or something that is a good thing, but it can be very stressful. And when your body's had a prolonged time of high stress, our hormones can go crazy. So during that year of gaining 50 pounds, it was pretty steady over the year. It wasn't like 20 pounds came on in a month. And then it was like a pound or two a week for a full 52 weeks. It was like so discouraging. I was so disheartened. I felt hopeless. I had been coaching for 15 years at that point, and I thought I had things figured out, And so when this happened, I was 38, 39. And so I do believe I was in early stages of perimenopause, a bit early because of competing and things like that. Throughout that year, I worked with a handful of different doctors. I read books. If I read a book that I liked, I would pay for a consult with the author to try and pick their brain and learn what they knew. Yeah. That's so smart. Many authors do that. And like you might not know, you just, go to their page and say, hey, can I, pay a couple $100, whatever they charge, have an hour with you. And I learned a lot that way. I worked with, different coaches, learned their protocols, took certifications. And I really think for me, it came down to taking that year kind of quote unquote off and treating my body really, really well. I still tried. Of course, like if you're gaining 50 pounds and you're a fitness person, or you're into like, wellness and health and fitness and that kind of thing, of course you're going to try to lose the weight as it's coming on, so I tried all sorts of different things. I have so many stories of random things that I tried. But really in the end, it came down to learning my labs, understanding what was going on. So I was estrogen dominant. I had 0 progesterone, low testosterone. My thyroid was sluggish and my cortisol was super high and my insulin was really high. And so just kind of working on each of those individual things with, strategies that we now use with our clients that I'm sure you use with your patients as well. And it just takes time to reverse that kind of stuff. And so after that year, it was kind of interesting because it was 1 year later on the dot. I remember it was early September, 2020, and I stepped on the scale and my weight had gone down a pound. And that was literally the first time it had fluctuated downwards in a year. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't like believe it really, And then each week it kind of started dropping and dropping. And I lost 10 pounds pretty like quote unquote easily. Like it was kind of like just inflammation I was able to just lose. But then the rest I really had to work at. And it took me about a year and a half or so. And I lost the rest of it and have been able to maintain it since. And so I really think it was, now I pay attention to my labs. I get them done every 6 to 12 months. And if something's a little bit off, I know what to do. Like I know supplements to take. I know different nutrition and workout strategies to kind of dial things in and just kind of fine tune things and make sure that I'm just maintaining healthy hormone status, a good metabolism, making sure I'm not doing extreme prolonged diets, things like that. And I've been able to maintain my weight since like 2021 or 2, whenever I had lost it. So that's kind of my story. And I find that the more I talk about it, the more women come to me saying, oh my gosh, same thing happened to me. Yeah. Or, being on social media through that year, I was like, people had a front seat to my weight gain. And like, it's horrifying, really, but I was not about to do a typical, what people do is like only post their good pictures and like kind of, fall off into the background. Like I was not going to do that. And so I showed up, but people watched my weight gain and then they watched my weight loss. And I think that it gave them hope, like, oh, she is just like me, because even though she looked so good before, like, oh, she actually gained some weight and she figured out how to lose it. Like if she can do it, I'm sure she can, like her team can help me do that as well, So that's kind of how we got to where we are. And now pretty much all of our clients are between the age of 40 and 60 and, going through perimenopause or recently postmenopausal and trying to figure out like what that means for them. Like we talk to so many women that are, still doing like F45 or CrossFit 5 days a week, and they just don't know the difference. Like they don't know what they should be doing at this stage of life,
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I know we'll get into the details of it, or at least I'll try to focus on that. No, I'm kidding, but yeah, I think it's funny though, because I did want to go back to what you said in the opening. I want to say it was like I was arguably too young to be an in-person trainer, but it was around like the 2000s. But back then, it was like how not to hurt yourself in the gym, or if you're like a bodybuilder, like that's essentially what I was, more in strength sports. But a buddy of mine, his joke he tells, because he was one of the first, online bodybuilding coaches, and he used to have
Who was
people.
it? I'm curious.
His name's Justin Harris. If you look up for Pony Nutrition, and he's out of Michigan as well. But he always jokes whenever he talks or whatever about Polaroids. He literally had people send him Polaroids.
No way.
And like everyone in the audience, like the young, anyone who's 25 or 30 or below, they're just like, what is a Polaroid? Right?
Yeah, that is
what
hilarious.
Like, no, there's actually used to be like, we actually had photos that you had to get
before and after pictures.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
He had people that only a couple of clients outside. Back then, there was like message boards and blogs, and
and that's where I started learning stuff, was on the message boards. And there was like, I mean, some guys are still around, like Aaron or Alan Aragon, Lyle McDonald. I don't know if you remember any of those. Like they were big on the message boards.
Vaguely. I mean, I was more. I was young and closed-minded, so I was more in the the
You're like, I
bodybuilding
know what I'm
space.
doing. I'm not out. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of like stuck to like that piece,
Sure.
but a lot of the formal education was more general population and stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah. Yeah.
that brought back some memories. So I do think it's really interesting for people to note, and we'll get into the details, but certainly you have the training, the certifications and
Mhm.
such. You went through the ringer on the formal process to, stamp of approval that you know what you're doing. But I
Mhm.
think the other part that a lot of people sometimes maybe undervalue if they overvalue that stuff, not that it's bad,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but is like the 20 years experience, because
Yeah.
there's
Mhm.
so many things that you can get best practices from. Like there's, just look at consultants, just for the
Yeah.
audience out there. Like they're people that work with multiple different high achievers or people who had the same struggles and issues, and they come up with solutions, they package it, and then they go and consult and sell it. It's
Mhm.
kind of similar in my mind as like a coach who has a vast amount of experience, because it's almost like,
Mhm.
yep, been there, done that. I've heard this
Yeah.
before. Not that your story isn't important, or to
Mhm.
like down regulate how you're feeling, or say it's not a big deal, because it is to you. It's a big deal, but hey, I can help you through this, right? I have that
Yeah.
experience. So I
Yeah.
think
That
that's a really
empathy.
cool. Yeah, and that's yeah, and as you were mentioning, right? Like your personal journey as you kind of went through that. So I think
Mhm.
that's that adds a lot of value to the process. So
For sure.
as you were going through that, I'm curious to, if we took, say, the last, you know, 3 or 4 years of women coming into your program, what is it that you hear as far as like the mindset or their view on trying to approach healthier living and kind of what's going on at this stage in life?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's a lot of frustration.
Mhm.
The biggest things we're hearing is like, I have tried everything I've done. And there's so much information on social media as well. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I've tried the weighted vest. I've tried fasting. I've tried keto. I've tried carnivore. Nothing out there works. I've even tried tracking my macros and that didn't work. And I mean, I've come to the point where, without working with someone one on one, you can't really, like, everyone could say I tried macros, but okay, well, were you consistent? Were the
Right.
macro targets what you should be trying? Like, there's so many variables that's like, even if you feel like you've tried everything, if you haven't worked with a coach, a good coach one on one, you have not tried everything, because the magic is in having someone hold you accountable, watch you every single day, see what you're doing, and then adapting that going forward. Like, that's the
Right.
key right there. So many women I talk to are, frustrated. They've tried different programs, they've tried online challenges, and like nothing seems to have worked for them. But oftentimes I find, like, and I don't want to call people out or anything, but
Sure.
like oftentimes they're either not being truthful with like their effort or their compliance, or, when we can really dial it into like, okay, I get really consistent like 5 days a week, but I really struggle on the weekends, or I really struggle in the evenings. We get a lot of people coming to us. I have a ton of testimonials of people saying, I thought it was my hormones, but it was really that I was eating too much. Or I
Mm,
thought it was, aging and perimenopause. I was sure that I couldn't lose weight, but it's really because my workouts and my nutrition weren't in line with their goals. And so there's so much that actually is in our control. And it's kind of like a victim mindset that I'm seeing a lot of right now, of like, you know, my hormones are messed up, my metabolism is messed up. So therefore, there is nothing I can do and I'm not
right.
going to see results. So what's the point of even trying,
Right. Yeah, and I think it's a lot of people, they sometimes miscalculate the amount of time and compounded
Mhm.
damage, if you will, they've done. And then they have, from social media, from stuff that's out there's a lot of good, but there's also
Yeah.
this misguided, do this 30-day challenge, right? And it's like,
Yes.
although 30 days you can move the needle if you're being coached very tight, most of these challenges, again, hey, I'm happy people are taking a step towards health, so I'm not knocking the
Right.
challenges.
Absolutely.
It's just,
Absolutely.
don't take a snapshot of that, right, and say pass fail. Like,
Yes.
you had 10 years of building up metabolic dysfunction,
Yeah.
or whatever the condition or issue is. Like, it's going to take a little time to unravel that.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Hopefully there's not a need for medical intervention, but there may be, to
Mhm.
help push you through that, and help people going. So
Yeah, for
is
sure.
that, and I'm curious with some of your approach and programming, and I want to get to some of the details here, but just to kind of set this up for everyone listening. So when you created, uh, why am I drawing a blank? Moxie.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Sorry, I don't know why I
No, you're
paused for
good.
a minute. Your the Moxie program, like
Mhm.
how is that? I was glancing at it. Is it they're in 30-day segments, or how does that program work? And what was the inspiration behind that? Like, and who's a good fit for it?
Yeah, yeah, great. So, like I said, I've been coaching for a long, long time, and my programs have evolved over the years. I do have some, we call them 30-day programs, but they're not really like challenge based. It's more like an educational, like here's a good way to start. Here's some workouts. Here's how to track your macros. It's really very vanilla and basic. So our main program is our high level coaching program, and
Mhm.
so we typically like to start with 4 months. Most of our clients stay around for about a year because, like you said, it takes time
Time.
to reverse these things they've done to themselves over the years unknowingly, right? And so we start typically with 4 months, and we focus first on consistency with healthy habits. And so people don't realize how important the sleep is, how important the water and the digestion, all these things are so crucial if you want to have lasting results with your weight loss. Like, we are not about just getting a pretty before and after picture and then
Right.
it's like, okay, see you later. Like, we love it when clients can stick around with us a year and a half, 2 years. I know that's a luxury type of situation, not everyone can do that, but it really, it takes a long time to see real lasting sustainable results. And so in our first phase, we do focus on like that consistency and really learning how to track, how to increase your steps if that's needed, how to focus on better sleep, that kind of thing. Once we feel like you're in a good place, assuming you don't need any specific hormone protocols, gut protocols, things like that, then we typically move into a fat loss phase, assuming like your metabolic health is where we want it to be. And then phase 2 is focusing on that fat loss, however long that takes, right? And we will do maintenance phases in there. We'll do diet breaks as needed. And then after the fat loss phase, once we get you to your goal, we focus on reverse dieting. I feel like that term is a little bit controversial these days.
Sure.
In my mind, reverse diet just means getting calories back up to maintenance, whether
Right.
that's fast, whether that's slow. There's lots of different opinions out there. I
Right.
just use that term meaning we're going to get your calories back up to maintenance, make sure you're maintaining the results you saw. And then we have a lifestyle phase after that that I think is just as important as any of the other phases, because I don't know about you, Joe, but I don't currently track macros anymore. I
Sure.
have an approach where I know sometimes I'll eyeball my protein and track that just to make sure I'm getting enough. Or if
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting a little bit lazy about my food, I'll track to make sure I'm getting enough calories.
Yeah.
But on a day by day basis, like, we want to teach people how to not track. And sometimes as clients go through our program and they're tracking their macros, they kind of get a little bit mindless about it in not necessarily a bad way. They're just tracking and not learning. They're like, okay, that's 5 ounces of chicken. That's this, that's that on their food scale. But they forget to like look at, well, what does that look like? Like,
Yeah.
you need to learn, what does a proper protein source for or serving for you look like, so that going forward, you can make sure you are getting enough fiber, getting enough protein, getting all the things you need without feeling like you have to weigh everything, measure everything, track all your food, that kind of thing. So that's kind of our whole client journey, is once we feel like you've lost the weight you want to see, if you need any hormone protocols, gut protocols, you've gone through those, you're maintaining your weight, we've taught you these more mindfulness approaches. And then we're like, okay, I feel like you're good. If the client feels like they're ready to leave us and they've, quote, graduated from
Sure.
our program. So that's kind of how our whole thing is set up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate walking through that, because I would imagine the first phase, and just for those out there, um, just to unpack, like, what do you see? Maybe, well, let me rephrase this. So, what is it that you see as the most impactful? And I know I'm asking you to be broad here, but like
Yeah.
in that first phase, like when you say education, like what are some key things maybe that women are coming to you and you feel like, hey, these are the top 2, 3, 4 things that are like the most impactful for them to learn about when they're first starting this journey?
Yeah. I mean, I hate to break it down to like, oh, it's calories in, calories out, it's macros, that kind of thing, because I do believe I'm much more than a macro coach.
Right.
And there's plenty of programs out there that are $100 a month that will give you some macros and
Right.
let you check in with them every once in a month. That's not who we are. And I'm sure that's not what you focus on either. But with that said, if I were to just think about the women that come into our program, probably the biggest eye-opening thing to them is they're either eating a lot more than they thought they were,
Yeah.
honestly, or like a lot less than they thought they were, half the week, and then more than they thought they were. I don't believe in like a starvation mode kind of situation. I believe if someone was really under eating consistently over time, they'd be losing weight if it was
Right.
severe, you know? And
Sure.
so usually people think they're under eating, they're really just, you know, binge eating / under eating, right?
Right.
And so I think it's that awareness that is crucial. And also the awareness around food choices. Like we have clients come in that are eating like no fiber or really low protein. And it's just a lot of it is that awareness around their food, how much they're eating, what they're eating, that can be a game changer. Of course, I mean, we have 7 habits that we work on. Sleep, really, really important. You know, there's so many
Yeah.
studies out there that are like, people who are getting 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep are losing like twice as much fat as people who are getting 5, 6 hours of sleep. Like it's so important. And I feel like whenever I talk about that, people kind of, no pun intended, but go to sleep. Like they like
Yeah.
think it's like so dumb. You know, they're like, oh, snooze fest. I don't want to listen to that. But it's so important. But really, I would say like the biggest aha moment for most of our clients in the beginning is like how bad their nutrition is, and they didn't even
Yeah.
realize it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and I'm curious to what your experience has been. I don't have it at my fingertips, but I've seen a lot of studies to where I guess 2 comments I'd have like, I mean, geez, somewhere between like 40 and some as high as 80% of a miscalculation
Oh yeah.
of their calories, not
Yes.
because they're trying to be, you know, sneaky or
Yep.
not, but they just don't. Oh, I forgot. Oh, I grabbed that. Oh, I
Yeah,
did grab that one
absolutely.
time. Like, oh yeah, I
Yes.
forgot. And then I seen some really interesting information. Actually, there was I'm drawing a blank on the podcast. There's 2 physicians. One was he runs metabolic wards, and he was
Okay.
talking about how like unless you're in a metabolic ward,
Uh-huh.
calories in versus calories on doesn't work. Not because physics doesn't say it works. Physics, it works. Like that's
Yeah.
clearly
Yes.
not open for discussion,
Right.
but your hormones and these signaling mechanisms are so powerful.
Mhm.
People don't even realize subconsciously. I'm making this up, but like they grab the Skittles as they walk to the bathroom
Yeah.
at their office. You know, there's a bowl of fill in the blank, and they're just like, "Oh yeah," and they're like, "Well, I only ate twice today." Not real, you know,
Totally.
and not that
Yes.
they just think that, right? And is that something
Right.
you see a lot of with?
Oh, absolutely. Just we have a weekly coaches meeting for the coaches who work for me. We were talking about this yesterday, actually, and it led me to go to look for the study, and I found it, and I put it in our coach resource Slack channel with my team, and it was that exact study that you're talking about. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of them, but it was
Sure.
something about people or underestimate their calories by 60%, and they overestimate their activity. And this was proven by like breath tests, and I don't actually remember how they proved the activity, but it's just people don't mean to lie. They don't think they're lying. They're being honest with us. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges we have with coaching is trying to really help them realize what's really going on, because we're not there with our clients like in person. We aren't seeing if they grab the Skittles or what have you as they walk by, the front desk or something. But it's getting them to remember. We had a client recently that was saying something like, I only ate 800 calories that day. But then she's like later said, but I stopped tracking around 4 o'clock, and
Right.
I was fine after that. I was quote unquote on track, but I underate that day because she only put 800 calories in
Right.
her app. That's what she took away from the day. And so it's just a lot of education on that kind of stuff.
Well, and I want to ask some. I just had a comment on that when you were saying that, because I do recall there's a couple stories I remember, but one specifically where a friend of mine had this client, and he is brilliant and very big into the physics and the math of
Mhm.
everything. And he's like, I couldn't understand why this lady was not losing weight.
Yeah.
Come to find out, everything healthy, top notch, blah blah. She thought, and I'm not picking on her, right? But
Yeah, sure.
because olive oil's healthy, she thought, oh, it doesn't count. So she
Yeah.
was making like spaghetti or what, and very low portion, all this stuff, but
Yeah.
just draining it in olive oil. And he's like,
Uh-huh.
well, it's 9 calories per unit. You just added
Right.
like 300 calories. I mean, whatever the number was,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it just a compound effect over 7 days was his deficit. He's like, well,
Totally.
here we go. And so I think a
Yeah.
lot of times, and I don't know if it's different between men and women, but a lot of times there's this, it's just a little bit like, my dressing
Yes.
or
Totally.
my added dietary, healthy fat or whatever the case may be. I always say to people, I suggest to people, I should say, is if they say, I struggle with weight loss, the first thing I'll ask is, do you measure it? Have you ever measured it or weighed it or both? And if the answer is no, I'm like, then you don't struggle with it. Like do that
Totally. Yep.
first and then you'll see. And I know it's
Yeah.
a pain in the butt, but just do it for a couple weeks. Cause like you were saying
Yeah.
earlier,
Yeah.
I can look at protein now and I'm like, okay, this is roughly what I need. Generally with carbohydrates. The one thing I will say though, I had someone on a dietitian is almost a year ago now, and he was talking about fiber. And I was like, man, I haven't thought about my fiber intake for a while. And I did the same thing in my analogy where I
Yeah.
was thinking foods were good fiber sources that weren't. I just never researched it. I just was like, yeah, the fiber's
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
I found it like I did a recall one day. It was like 5 grams or something.
Yes.
I'm like,
I actually did that like
yeah,
6 months ago because we
okay.
focus on fiber with our clients a lot. I'm like, I eat a variety of foods. I'm good. And so I tracked my fiber for like a week and it was like 15 grams, which
Yeah.
is not horrible, but I was like, I need to add like at least 10 more grams to this.
Yeah. No, right
Yeah.
away I started to, add different higher fiber foods just to my routine because I'm like, this isn't yeah, like I was like, I'm shocked. I'm like, I didn't even
Well, and
realize
that's
it.
the beauty of awareness because once
Right.
you know, it's easy. Like add some chia seeds to your oatmeal and there's 5 more grams right there. Like it's easy to do, but most people just don't even know that they're not doing it. And
Yeah.
the hard
No.
thing too, like what you were saying with the olive oil example, is it's hard as coaches to know what your clients don't know, and your clients don't know what they don't know. Like she probably, I don't
Right.
know how your friend figured out the olive oil thing. It's a lot of like back and forth discussion and questioning because she obviously didn't think olive oil was an issue. So she probably
Right.
never brought it up to her
Right.
coach. So her coach didn't even know she was doing it. And it's kind of tricky to find those things sometimes, but
Right.
that happens all the time for us too.
Well, and I think to your point, this individual, brilliant, does a lot, but is not the type of coach. The style of clients he works with don't do a lot of conversations and they prefer that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, but that's what you miss is the nuance
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
okay, wait a minute. I need to verbally hear you walk me through how you prep this meal. And then all of
Yes,
a sudden, whoa,
yes.
whoa, 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 stop. What did you say?
Uh-huh.
It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
okay. And so is that something you do in your programs and find value
Absolutely. And
in?
that's what I
Yeah.
was going to say. With this high level of coaching, like you get what you pay for. There are
100%.
absolutely coaches out there that charge $100, $200 a month, and you don't have that deep conversation.
Right.
But my coaches, like what brought it up in our meeting yesterday, is she was like, I just can't I feel like something's off here. I don't know what it is. So we got on an extra Zoom call and she was just like that. Break down for me every single thing you're doing in your meal prep. I mean, I think they knew kind of where like the direction of the conversation, but it took a face-to-face conversation to figure it out. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's like the game changer because people don't struggle with weight loss. They just don't know what they don't know. And you
Right.
need a coach to find that out for you. But the coaches that you don't talk to very much, that just give you a macro count and you check in every other week or so, there's not enough conversation to figure that out.
Yeah. No, it's something as you were talking about, I was curious on the same topic of nutrition. How do you let me back up. Most women, I would say anecdotally, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I would venture to guess most women and men, we need to step up more and do more of this,
Mhm.
but they do most of the shopping, right? For the
Yeah.
food in the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Sure.
so I'm curious to like, how big of a gap and or value is your approach to teaching them how to grocery shop, how to
Mhm.
understand what they're buying? Is that a focus of what you do? Do you see a lot of, opportunity there for people? Maybe they just have the best of intentions, but don't know how to read
Yeah.
labels or don't know how to understand stuff. Like, what does that look like in your program?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do monthly educational calls with clients that are
Nice.
led by either myself or our head coach, or we have guests on occasionally, and that's where we focus a lot on that kind of stuff, like the more of those teaching opportunities. We try and do most of our teaching like as things come up in a one-on-one situation. Some people don't necessarily need food label 101 type of kind of
Right.
education, but some people do, and we don't know who needs that until we get to the point where we're like, okay, your results are a little bit slower than we expect. Let's look at your food log. Let's look at your food logs. Okay, why, our clients do log into our coaches log into our clients MyFitnessPal. They check out their food quality. And yes, if we notice someone's like eating a lot of processed foods or eating croissants and orange juice for breakfast, we're like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's kind of dive into why these aren't good choices, what we should be buying instead. But we do a lot of education around like why you should be choosing whole foods, what you should be buying at the grocery store. Our clients get recipes, things like that to kind of start with. And we do an example meal plan as well for them based on the foods they enjoy, things they're already buying, kind of how to put those foods together into different meals, that sort of thing. And so, yeah, it's really important, especially with reading the food labels, like you mentioned. I remember when I first learned, I mean, I'll use crumble cookie as an example, but
Mhm.
it was way before crumble was around. It was one of those big, like grandma's cookies that have like the pink
Yeah.
frosting. I remember when I learned how to read food labels and I was like, there's 4 servings in that? What? Like, because when you just read it, if you don't know how to read
Yes.
it, you think it's 200 calories in a cookie and you're like, cool, but then you're like, oh, there's 4 servings. There's 200 calories in a quarter of a cookie. And you kind of
Yes.
forget that some people don't realize that or know what to look for on the food label,
Yeah. It's a, well, I don't want to say it. I was gonna say a dirty little marketing secret
Yeah,
trick,
yeah.
but I'll reserve that and let me take that back and say
Sure,
everyone
sure.
has the best of intentions, right? Let
Yes,
me
yes.
assume that and say that you definitely have to slow down and read that because if you look at even like if you look at a serving size of like I was saying before, like a dressing, I'm
Yeah.
like, just if I had a family member try to use a fork. I know it's gonna sound funny, but I was like,
Uh-huh.
put your dressing off to the side and just use a fork to like get what you need just to
Yeah.
get that little bit of flavor.
Yeah.
I mean, roughly, I don't remember the exact number, so I'm gonna say 150, maybe 100,
Mhm.
150 calories less. Like, because they
Yeah,
were
I
just
bet.
dousing it with their, and I'm like, yeah, like see if you can,
It can
see if you
it
still
can
like it.
taste pretty much the same, yeah.
Yes,
I
yes,
think it's kind of a fun game to, like, get your dressing on the side and, like, try to get as much satisfaction, but not use all the dressing they give
right,
you. It's kind of
right.
a fun little challenge, and that's something that I teach my kids too. My kids are 17, 20, and 22,
Okay,
and I'm like, I want you guys learning how to have protein in your meals, how to, what to look for in your food labels, what added sugar means versus total sugar, what is too much added, what is high protein for this item, and that sort of thing. Like my kids will ask me like, is this healthy? And I'm like, that's too broad of a question.
yeah,
It depends on what else you're eating throughout the day. Like you could say, is this half a brownie healthy? Well, no, but it might be what your lifestyle needs, because maybe the rest of your day was
right,
completely clean, on point, and you have to have that half brownie in order to stay
right.
consistent, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I have a 10 and 13-year-old daughters, and they're both
Yeah.
getting more involved in like competitive sports and
Yeah.
trying. Now they're starting to get more, hey, I kind of want to get after it a little bit, Dad. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, cool. And so we're always mindful. And I think it's important because as adults, we're definitely screwed this up where we say good, bad, healthy,
Yes.
not healthy.
Well, and
And so
that's why that
yeah,
question, is this healthy? I'm like, I don't even know how to answer that. I know
right.
she has the best of intentions when she asks, but
Yes. Yeah, and that's a similar thing like you point out there that we talk to our girls about is like we'll just say like, "Where's your protein source?" And like, she's sitting there smashing some mac and cheese,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah. Right,
"Well, come
right.
on, honey, like, come on, and we'll say
at,
that too,
at
like,
minimum, drink the half this fair life or something,
yeah, well, like, athletes need protein, honey, or you need a little bit
Yeah.
of that, So yeah, it's definitely something that as they progress, we're finding the balance to
Hmm.
teach them that, but just like a lot of adults, it's like I can recall when I competed in like physique sports, I would go to a family outing and they'd be like, "Well, can you have this? Well, this is healthy, so you
Yes.
can have it." And I'm like,
Right.
"I already measured my food. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I'm good."
But also you can have that. You're
Yeah.
just choosing not
Yes.
to. Yeah. My
Yeah.
mom used to ask that all the time. Can you have this? And I'm like, I can have whatever I want to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's comes down to what I decide I want to have in the beginning of the day.
And do you find that with women a lot of times that are struggling with have it be weight or just
Mhm.
overall trying to improve their health, do you find more of a neutral relationship with food or more of a maybe not so positive relationship? Like what are some things you're seeing as far as like just their overall like view and like mindset when it comes to food?
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty negative nowadays. I think there's a lot of scare tactics out there.
Yeah.
There's so much of like, don't eat this, don't eat that. And I think it's interesting. Just like the seed oil debate, and like,
Right.
it was like, sorry, I'm stuttering, but like there was so much hate around seed oils, but now there's research coming out that it's like, it's actually not that big of a deal. And so there's so many different opinions on everything that it's like, you just need to eat a variety of healthy foods. Like it really all comes down to, in my opinion, clean. No, I don't even like the word clean, but like
Yeah.
single ingredient, whole foods as much as you can. Lots of colors. If you're having colors, you're probably getting enough fruits and vegetables on your
Right.
plate, and plenty of protein. And if most of your food is like that, it doesn't really matter if you have something that has a tablespoon of canola oil in the recipe, in my opinion. I know there's lots of opinions
Oh
out
yeah.
there about
Yeah.
that, but I just feel like the less quote unquote strict you are about your food choices, the less scary food is. There's people out there that are like, you shouldn't have oats, you shouldn't have veggies, you shouldn't have dairy, you shouldn't have gluten, you shouldn't have all these things. And you're like, well, what is there left for me to eat? And then
I
you are eating the processed bar because you're like, it says no dairy, no gluten, no whatever on it,
I will say I'm jealous of some of the content creators in our space that they made the guys talking about don't like they're drinking water, like don't drink water, you spit the water out, and then like don't eat oatmeal, they spit the oatmeal out, and then like don't eat berries, and you berries, and you're like, and they go through like 7 different like health influencers and what not to eat, and it's like no wonder people are so confused. Like, just don't eat every day.
Right. And that's dangerous right there, right? And so it's all about deconstructing all of that and your mindset around it. And there are no good and bad foods, and everything has a place, even your favorite treats, right? We're big on, we've had women that, I don't want to say eating disorders because we would refer that out 100%, but who have slightly disordered relationships with food, and they can't control themselves around cookies or whatever. And we actually, we kind of try and get down to the root of like, what food is it that you feel not controlled around? And actually we want you to include that in your macros every single day. But you're tracking your macros and you're learning that one Oreo is not a problem, even if it's every single day. The problem is when you eat the whole sleeve of Oreos and then you say, screw it. And you also eat the cookies and the brownies and the ice cream as well.
Yeah. Cause you're like, well, all is lost. I might as well just throw it out.
Yeah.
And that's the slippery slope, right? It's
right.
And that's, just in anything in life, I try to just really encourage people, like, it's a continuum. It's not pass fail. Right. And I don't do coaching. I haven't in a long time, but even just talking to friends and family, like I'm not as, in as much of an expert as you are on the topic, as far as the day-to-day working with people. But I do find that it's the guilt cycle where it's like, oh, I didn't do it. Guilt and shame.
I'll never be able to do it because I didn't do it.
No, I'm never going to be able to do it. My follow with my coach is in 3 days. I'm just going to smash a bunch of food for 3 days. Like,
And then I'm not going to check in this week because I wasn't good. And so, so I'll start over Monday.
Back to the good, bad. Yeah. Again, going back to the good, bad versus like, well, you're going to be alive 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. Well, you're still going to have to eat. Like, you're never going to get away from this. So it's okay. Let's just keep rolling, keep moving. And I know I'm bouncing around a bit, but I did want to go back to something and then probably shift back to this topic. Sure. But I wanted to ask, because you mentioned earlier, it was 50 pounds in about 52 weeks, if I have that right.
Yeah. Yep.
And so one of the things I wanted to ask, and it could be your journey or with other women, and I have a couple of selfish reasons why I'm asking too, but what did you find relative to inflammation and like just additional I guess inflammation and unwanted, extracellular fluid and things of that nature? Like, what are some things that in either journey of clients or yourself that you noticed with that? Because it just caught my eye because I saw that picture where you have yourself side by side, and it kind of grabbed my attention as far as those differences there.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is stress. I think when our bodies get super stressed out for whatever reason, like I mentioned in the beginning, I see it a lot in myself and in clients with like a rounder face, or also just like in your belly. Yes, they're very, very round face. And for me, that was stress that led to that inflammation. I'm sure that, I mentioned I had high insulin and high cortisol. Both of those can lead to excess belly fat and excess inflammation. But I have found, and I actually have I have a little protocol we use with clients that, when your weight shoots up 3 to 5 pounds in a short amount of time, almost always I have found that is stress induced because it's just extra inflammation. It's not body fat that you gained in like 3 or 4 days. And so we'll ask clients, like if their weight jumped up in a check-in, and this has happened before with me. I actually learned this from a coach years and years ago because I was freaking out. Like, why is my weight up 4 pounds from last week? I stayed on plan. And they're like, tell me about your sleep. Tell me about your stress this week. And I was like, oh yeah, like my husband actually lost his job, or I can't remember what it was for me specifically, but it was a very stressful week. And I was like, oh, I didn't really realize it. And then we see it with clients. So what we do is when weight jumps up, I mean, you can always just keep following your plan, of course, like stay on track, keep drinking your water, keep sleeping good, that kind of thing. But we have a little protocol where, and let me try to remember it off the top of my head. It's basically like do all of the healthy things, but do them more. So you're going to sleep more. We usually take out a week of lifting, do a rest week, because if people haven't had a rest week in a long
Yeah.
time off of the gym, that is huge for reducing inflammation and water retention. So maybe it's cutting back on your workouts. And I always say, okay, we're going to not lift for a week. And I want you to sleep an extra hour because you're not going to the gym. So whether that's like you wake up at 6 a.m. to get your workout and I want you sleeping till 7, or if your workout's later in the day, you can still sleep in an extra hour because you have that hour later to do more work or whatever it is. So you're sleeping more, you're walking more, and you're drinking more. So drink about 1.5 times what you're currently drinking. I have to say publicly, I would cap that at like maybe 1.25 gallons. I mean, I drink more myself, but like, I don't want anyone like drinking 2 gallons and then coming back and suing us or something like that,
Sure.
So 1.5 times your typical water intake,
Yeah.
sleeping more, and just really focusing on that recovery. You're not going to have any like backwards progress because you're skipping your workouts for a week. Like it's a really good thing, especially for people who don't do it very often. And almost always that extra 3 to 4 pounds they gained is gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really think that stress is the biggest culprit. And if you're seeing, changes in your hormones because of that, I still think that stress is like the underlying culprit to why those hormones, change like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like I've seen a lot of I've done a lot of like diurnal patterns testing
Mm-hmm.
and cortisol testing.
Yeah, me too.
And a lot of times too, even if you don't have that, so for those out there that are like, well, I don't want to put the money up for that, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny to me how many multimillionaires there are in our space that they talk about walking,
Mm-hmm.
sunlight,
Yeah.
water, and sleep
Yes.
hygiene. Like
Uh-huh.
there's like nothing that costs money, people. Like,
Yeah. And it's
and
the
I'm not.
boring stuff. So people don't want to listen
Yes,
to it because they
yes,
want the quick fix, which is kind of why I took those things and put them into a protocol, because that's what people want. People
yeah.
want a magic solution. I'm like, okay, here's your magic solution. Sleep more,
It's.
walk more, rest more,
I will say, there was someone I know that I want to say hydration probably did a little bit more, not much,
Mhm.
but they changed one thing for their recovery, if you will, and then they started just walking, just a
Mhm.
slow 25-minute walk every morning, just to kind of
Yeah.
start the day off, get moving, get some sunlight, whatever. And I want to say it was around 7 pounds in about 2.5, 3 weeks,
Wow.
and so most of pretty much all of that was like I'm going to assume, maybe there's a little bit of fat, sure,
Sure.
but was a lot of this inflammation and just like
Yeah.
fluid retention. Cause like this, the skin, the face, the way things,
Mhm.
were feeling in clothing based on the feedback was, um, just that presented itself to say like, yeah, that was inflammation, like where
Yeah.
you lost it. And it was more like
Totally.
everywhere. And so I just think some of those things are so key to do that. And as you were talking about earlier, a lot of times when a coach says accountability, people think like you have to do this, you have to do this, have this. Like, yeah, accountability also is like support and guidance too, right? It's like,
Oh, absolutely. And it's
just
also telling someone what you're doing so that they can take that
understand
information
why.
and change it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a key one.
Yeah.
Um, I did want to transition just to go maybe a layer deeper in perimenopause specifically.
Mhm.
Um, what are some common myths that you find relative to like nutrition? And we'll get into training. I guess we can
Mhm.
tackle both, but we'll start with nutrition.
Sure.
Myths that you hear that maybe just are just you just wish would go away,
Yeah, yeah,
as far
yeah.
as perimenopause.
Yeah. I can kick us off with a controversial one if you want.
Sure, that works.
That is fasting. So I know there are people that will die on the hill of fasting and not fasting. I have personally worked with so many women who have come to us saying, I'm intermittent fasting, or I'll do a 24-hour fast once a week. And we take that out and they start seeing better results. And I kind of wonder if part of their better results is because they're not so stressed
Yeah,
about the fasting. And it's more like we give them permission to eat when they're hungry around the clock, really. Like, of course, we're tracking, we're not overeating, but it's like you lose that like one layer of deprivation kind of, and you feel more freedom And so you feel less stressed about it. And so you start seeing better results, but I feel like fasting is not helpful for cortisol levels. It's not helpful for thyroid levels. And those are two things that do directly impact our metabolism and our weight, And so yes, fasting might be better for autophagy, for, your IGF-1 levels, that kind of thing. But when it comes to like weight management,
right.
I feel like fasting is no different, assuming you're hitting the same amount of calories. If you can hit your calorie targets easier by waiting until 10 a.m. to eat, fine. That's more of a lifestyle choice, not necessarily like fasting for, hormone health or weight loss or something. It's more just like time restricted eating,
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I'm like, not a huge fan of. And a lot of clients, we can transition them off of it. And they're like, oh, I actually feel less stress. I feel so much better. I like having breakfast in the morning. I kind of forgot that,
Well, yeah. And I think, some of the early indications of fasting, intermittent fasting or time restricted feedings being successful is because the time when the person overeats, you just cut that out.
Yes.
And eventually though, that's going to balance, but it's like, now to your point,
yes,
there's a reason why they're overeating at that time. And now they're super stressed and a bunch of survival mechanisms and hormones are turning on at that time when maybe it's at night and they should be sleeping. And it's like, well, let them eat at night.
Right. But you do have a good point. And we will, if we have clients who are like, oh, it's always like between 8 and 10 p.m., then we might say, eat your dinner, have a little treat so you feel emotionally satisfied, and stop eating at 7. So there are times when we use that. Sure. We just don't necessarily call it like fasting. I feel like that's more of just a habit to not snack at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And oftentimes the clock, I would imagine, I'm making an assumption here, but the clock will tell you what they're missing 2, 3, 4, 5 hours before. And if they have those things, they're fine. Like I know for a fact, like even with myself, my kids, like if I train hard and I don't have some sodium and fluids after, I want high fatty sodium, foods or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, why am I craving this nasty stuff I don't never want? And it's like, well, because
or if you undereat and you don't eat enough carbs, like you're going to be starving at dinner time. Of course you lose control when your kids get home from school. Obviously you haven't really eaten yet today.
Yeah. Any others? What else comes to mind for nutrition?
Gosh, there's a lot. Carbs.
I was going to say carbs are the boogeyman. Does that ever come up?
Yeah, absolutely. And carbs are essential for your thyroid health. They're essential for healthy cortisol. I talked about that year when I tried so many different things. I had really bad gut health. I've actually had pretty bad gut health for as long as I can remember, up until the last 5 years. And I remembered like my farts could clear a room and my kids were like, ew, mom, and it was kind of the joke, but that's just how I was, I thought, and so in part of that, like trying to figure out that weight gain, we really dialed in digestion. And one thing I did do was keto, and I did strict keto, not like modified, dirty, like real strict whole food keto. I actually was having some autoimmune issues come up. I was getting weird rashes. I got this weird sore on my lip, and autoimmune issues run in my family. And so my mom was like, oh, no big deal. I'll give you the phone number for my doctor. And I'm like, no, if I can address this, like with nutrition, I'm going to at least try that first. I'm not saying that people don't need doctors for autoimmune issues. I'm not saying that at all. Just for me, I didn't feel like that's what I needed. I felt like I could get to the root of it. And so I even did 4 weeks of carnivore because I was like, I do not want to go on medication for the rest of my life. If I can address this, I hated carnivore. I hated it. It was awful. But my rashes went away. My sore went away. And I had kind of a funny story. Because I had this sore on my lip, I went to a dermatologist and they gave me a cortisone cream and I was putting it on. And so, I was like, oh, I think it's getting a little better, whatever. But in my health journey, my coach had me doing a diurnal cortisol saliva test. And so I was doing the saliva test. I got the results back. It said that my cortisol levels were like 3,000 or something insane. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was Googling. I think I got it on like a Friday night. I was like, I'm dying. I'm sure I have the most extreme version of Cushing's disease. I know. And then it was like Monday before the test company, I think I did it through ZRT Labs. They called me and they were like, don't freak out. Like, are you using any cortisone cream? I was like, yes. And they were like, this is not an accurate reading. Stop using that. It was on my lip and I was spitting into a test tube. Like that should be so obvious, but I didn't even think about it. So where was I going with this? Oh yeah. What things that, so I had this extended period of time where I had cut out carbs and none of it worked for weight loss. Like nothing worked during that year, but it completely cleared up my digestion and it's been pretty good since then. But I found during that time, my cortisol was getting higher and my thyroid function was getting lower. And, we see this with clients all the time. And I've learned more since then that carbohydrates, healthy ones, your sweet potatoes, your rice, your grains, like those kind of things, fruits and veggies, they're crucial for healthy cortisol levels and a proper functioning thyroid. Sex hormones too, but I just find like it really, dials in, and like keeping your blood sugar levels stable. You want to have carbs throughout the day and healthy sources of them. My insulin was like, I don't even remember. It was like a 16 to 18. My blood sugar was 120 fasted while I was on keto. Like I was a mess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there was a lot of stuff that we were trying to work through that year, but so carbs, absolutely essential. Unless you're working on something specific, super high blood sugar, then you might take a different approach. But for general health, absolutely you need them in perimenopause.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on with that. And I won't get too into specifics because I don't want to paint with a broad brush and have people try it. But I have seen a lot of utility. Years ago, I took it from the sports world of carb. It sounds fancy, but carb timing. But really, it was just, how many to have, when we can calculate, when we know blood glucose is lowest, insulin sensitivity is the highest, and we would layer those meals into that. And I would do that with athletes more for performance, and then later tied it into general population. And it seemed to help the cravings. It seemed to help. Obviously at the end of the day, the calories were the same, but just the ability for the body to use them for what they're designed to do versus just it's 10 o'clock at night. I'm just going to smash. Not that there's anything wrong at night. If you need it, you need it. Like, but just, I'm just going to smash a bunch of extra stuff here and then it's unraveling it. But
I mean, and there's, pre and post workout carbohydrate nutrition is really important. There's people who feel best with having carbs first thing in the morning. There's people who feel best just doing protein and fat in the morning. If you work out, I personally work out. Well, not currently, I'm going to the gym this afternoon, but when I work out in the morning, sometimes I'll have more carbs with my dinner because I don't like to eat first thing in the morning personally. So carbs are a tool and you can use them. You can even have carbs at night. Like there's studies that show like having fruit in the evening can help with your sleep. Like there's all sorts of different utilities for carbs, but like you said, I don't think it's a one size fits all.
Right.
I think it depends. If you're struggling with sleep, and you don't eat any carbs after like mid-afternoon, I'd try having some carbs before bed with your dinner or something.
Well, a lot of people don't realize insulin's a sedative. So like they think that they get the sleepiness on Thanksgiving dinner from tryptophan, but it's actually more of a response from an insulin spike that is causing that sleepy feeling. But whole nother topic for another podcast. But that's an area that I really, really went deep on, just kind of learning about insulin, carbohydrate response times, all that fun stuff. But I totally agree. I think it's a smart move too. Exactly what you said is, eating more carbohydrates and then creating an environment in the body that can cause it to have a higher likelihood over time to be stored as future energy. Like, do you have healthy sodium and hydration with those carbohydrates? Because we know when it's going from glucose to glycogen, it needs sodium and water to get into the cell, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like you, where in the morning, I like fats and proteins more. The problem is habitually I take a lot of my supplements in the morning just out of habit, but then my stomach gets upset unless I have carbs with it. So I'm always playing this wrestling match in the morning with like, if I wait till lunch and have it, like, so that's a nice, let's call it trending. Let's call it a hack. Right. But no, it's really just a nice practice. What you just described there, I think for people, like if you are that, hey, I'm starting this healthy lifestyle, man, my stomach hurts every morning I go on my walk. Like maybe you shift your calories, and that's where a coach comes in to listen to you and then say, why don't you try this? And I'm like, oh, like I had somebody, again, it was just a family member, and they're like, my coach has me on 150 grams of protein a day, but I can never get to it. I'm like, have you told your coach? I'm like, well, not really. And I'm like, okay, well,
because they're embarrassed. They feel like they're failing the plan. Yeah.
And what we talked about was I said, well, let's just say you were getting 60. Let's say you're getting 90. Yeah. And then 2 weeks later, you get 100. And then you get 110. Then 2 weeks later, you get 120. I'm like, what about that? And then maybe it's 3 months.
That's amazing.
You finally get to 150. And she's just like, I was like, like we're going from 60 to 150. I was like, your coach is dead on, but you got to tell her that you're struggling with this.
Yes.
And then they can help you map it out to do a step ladder to get to that.
Right. Like
if I find out with fiber.
Fiber too.
Yeah. Fiber, protein in women, usually men, it's pretty easy. I know
Steps too. If we're like, oh,
steps.
get
Yeah.
8,000, they're like, oh, I'm getting 3. I could never do that.
Right.
It's being honest. And if we ever have a client, or not if we ever, when we have clients, because it
Yeah.
happens all the time, that are struggling with a certain aspect of the plan, we are not going to be drill sergeants and be like, well, you got to get it. Like, I expect to see 100% next week. No, we're going to modify the plan to make it easier for them to hit. Even, is it as optimal? Well, maybe not. But what's most optimal is them feeling like they can do it. Because if they feel like they can do it, they're going to keep on trying and they're going to be more consistent. And over time, you can adjust those targets to be more quote unquote optimal.
Yeah, no, I think it's like that old saying of like, there's no failures, or there's no, what is it? Like, successes or failures, just outcomes, right? It's like, this is a long time journey. Just don't over index on the positive. Don't over index on the negative. Just roll with it.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm curious in your experiences, what are some myths, and we'll get to tips in a minute, but definitely some current myths, or just those things where like, oh geez, like when it comes to women and their approach to exercise, specifically in like that perimenopause phase, are there certain things out there you see that you're like, don't do that, not true, don't love it, and here's why?
Yeah, I have two. So number one would be like HIIT training. I actually have this one client. I mean, this happens all the time, but one that I always use as the example. She was doing F45. Are you familiar with F45? If listeners aren't, it's like a circuit based, like a Orange Theory, CrossFit style type of workout, and it's like, you go for 45, 60 minutes, whatever it is. Your heart rate's really high. You're sweating like crazy. You just feel exhausted afterwards. And I feel like as women, we crave those kind of workouts sometimes. And if we don't have those things, we feel like we didn't work out. Right. And so a lot of our coaching is shifting your mindset around what workouts you should be doing, Anyway, so we got this client in. It was probably a year ago, maybe 2. And she did not want to drop her F45. And like, we never make someone do something, And so we're like, okay, let's keep it in. You're adamant, like this is your community, you love it. Let's try to focus on your nutrition, focus on walks, focus on like your stress is getting higher. Your cortisol is probably chronically elevated from this style of workout. So let's try to do other things to mitigate that, since you don't want to cut that out. So we did. We tried, more walking. We tried to add in some restorative yoga. We focused on, mindset work, and she was really struggling to see results. And so finally she'd been with us for like 2 months, and she's like, I'm not seeing results. Maybe I'll like listen to them and cut the workouts out. And so we're like, what if we just cut it down to 2 or 3 times a week? And she was like, no, I want to go all in. I want to completely cut it out for a month and see what happens. We're like, cool. That's what we'd prefer, but we didn't want to like make you do it. We wanted you to be on board. And she lost like 6 pounds that month. Like it was insane. And it was a lot of inflammation. And it was like, and then she continued to see results afterwards, and she's down, I don't know, she dropped like 25, 30 pounds, and she's maintained it. She's not a client anymore. She graduated our program. And I really think that like skipping out on that style of workout and focusing on progressive overload style strength training was huge for her. And she was seeing strength gains. She was a strong lady. Like she's seeing strength gains she had never seen before, because when you're following up your deadlifts with like burpees and running, you're not going to be as strong on your next set of deadlifts, of course, and so that's just is totally different style of workout. So that's one of them. I strongly feel like the F45, the constant, quote unquote HIIT workouts, even though that's not true HIIT, but people think that is just breeding inflammation, water retention, and like a struggle to lose the weight. Also, it affects your hunger like crazy. You leave those kind of workouts, especially in perimenopause, you're exhausted, you're starving. That's when you have more of those like little BLTs, those bites, licks, and tastes that you don't even realize you're having. And so you think you're under eating in combination with the HIIT training, and you don't know why you're not seeing results. Right.
I would like to say I'm going to steal that, by the way, just for the record. So I did say it. So it's okay when I use it in future episodes. BLTs.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was it? Bites, licks,
licks, and tastes. BLTs.
Licks, and tastes. I'm
use it.
100% stealing that.
Yeah. No, it's all like I see
you
it
need
most
to trademark that.
Yeah. To be fair, I think I got it from someone else like 20 years ago. I don't remember. But it's like, it's like the licking of the peanut butter off the knife after you make a sandwich. It's the tastes of your dinner. There's so many sneaky ways. It's the Skittles, like you mentioned at work. It's all the little things that we don't track, and we don't realize we're having them. It's totally mindless.
Just with what you're saying with strength training, I just want to bring up an observation that I see, and this is, for any women listening, have your husband listen to this part, but it's like men, and I'm going to come back to the time frame, but men need to train more like women, and women can train more like men. Like men need to do
Yeah.
a little bit more hit. We
Yeah.
need to train our glutes and hamstrings better because we have all these back issues
Yeah.
because we're
Yeah.
over there with our bros benching all
Right.
day. And then we do just strength, just single plane motion, nothing
Hmm.
at all functional, nothing at
Yeah.
all that
Mobility.
translates
Right.
mobility. And I remember like early, it's fascinating to me because I just want to share one more thing, and you'll probably resonate with this because it sounds like we came up in the same time era. But
Yeah. How old
in
are you,
your
if you don't mind me asking?
yeah, 43. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm turned 45 next month. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember like as a trainer. So it was 2000 and I'm a trainer. And I remember like there's this clear line of carpet that changed. Over here was like inner outer thigh, ab machine,
Yes.
cardio machine,
The women's
packed with women.
area.
You
Yeah.
cross the line and it's all weights and it's dudes. And I
Yeah.
remember as a trainer, like 2, 3 years into it, one woman would be over there, two.
Uh-huh.
And then now you walk into a gym and it's like the dudes are nowhere to be found and all the women are getting
Yes.
after it. And so it is cool to kind of
It
see
is
that
cool.
that
Yeah.
change,
That
but it
shift.
just, I remember like being like, what, like just, I was just always curious. And then a lot of times, honestly, though, as a trainer, like an in-person trainer, it helped
Hmm.
my business because I would approach the women and be like, hey, like, what are you working on? Like, well,
Yeah.
why don't you try this? And like, well, I'm just not comfortable.
Yeah.
And just like it sounds like you're, passionate about what you do. And back then I was really passionate about that too. And it was just like,
Hmm.
let me just show you. Like, well, how
Yeah.
much? I'm like, I don't care. Just let me show you.
Yeah.
Like,
Just walk over here with me so
yeah,
you can get used to it. Yeah.
yeah. And so, but yeah, I do find that interesting to where a lot of the differences, right? Because like a lot of guys I talk to, they're like, and you mentioned earlier too, like restorative work. Um, I had a friend he's probably in his mid 50s now, and he struggled, I want to say 15 years with stress,
Mm.
with back pain, with all this. Finally, his wife convinced him to go to yoga, and he's like the most manly man dude you'll ever meet. Runs a
Yeah.
construction company, the whole
Uh-huh.
stereotypical. He's been doing yoga for like 4 years, and he loves it.
That's
He's like
awesome.
so into it because of the restorative, the movements, the
Yeah.
opening everything up. And I do think there's a lot of application in health in general to like deloading, um,
Yes.
restorative work, and then also, and I'm curious too if you ever run into this. Do you see any paths? I guess there's probably a couple paths crossing. Do you see anything relative to like some women with their menstrual cycle of when you need to time some of those interventions, or is that not
Sure.
related and it's more like life events related? Like how do you decide when someone should maybe do more of that? Is that one
Yeah,
of the
that's
factors?
we don't do a lot of that in our coaching program. We focus more on just like listening to your body. And
Yeah,
I feel like there can be a little bit of harm in timing your workouts around your menstrual cycle,
sure.
only because like, if people say, oh, you should be feeling a little more tired during this phase, you're like, but I don't. I
Well,
feel good. So why should I dial it back? So I don't really think it's a one size fits all kind of situation. We just focus more on like we have deloads built into our program, but we really look at biofeedback, and we're like, if you're really tired, if you're not recovering well, let's have either a rest week or a deload week where you're just not pushing as hard. It's more like related to your biofeedback really than our menstrual cycles. And a lot of the women we work with, I don't know about anyone listening. I'm on day 64 of my cycle. It's all over the place. I don't know what's
sure.
going on. So that's like hallmark perimenopause. I
Right,
don't know if I've been in my luteal phase for 2 months or what's going on really,
right.
but it's like it's not as easy as just as it would be in your 25, and if you're 25 or 30 to like time things to your cycle.
Yeah, I think it's important. Any advice out there you see where it's painting with a broad brush to understand that, again, thinking the person has the best of intentions, that they're just trying to get some information out there to help, but just
Hmm.
remember you're an individual person with individual
Yes.
chemical processes, biology, physiology. This is why you need to invest in a coach to
Yeah.
walk through that journey. And then hopefully, like some of the clients you mentioned, you can graduate and use it
Yeah.
forever, or maybe you love it
Yeah.
so much you just stick with it,
Yeah.
because you can fit
Yeah.
into your lifestyle. It's just that extra
Absolutely.
investment you're making. But
Yeah. I do
um,
have one more workout
yeah, yeah,
thing
yeah.
that
You go ahead and shoot.
and I get lots of hate for this one, and it's the weighted vest trend. And I have strong feelings on it, but I will say before we get into it that if you just like it and you feel like it helps your posture, your core strength, whatever, go for it. But I like to challenge people on like, because people will say, oh, I'm wearing my weighted vest and I'm not seeing results. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, think about why do people talk about wearing a weighted vest? One, bone density, right? But you should be lifting weights, and that's much more effective for boosting bone density than wearing a weighted vest. So number two, they'll say, oh, well, it makes my walks more intense. Why are you walking? We're walking because it's low intensity. We don't necessarily need to make your walks more intense because we're walking to lower our stress levels, to calm down, to like get more movement in throughout the day. All of a sudden you add a weighted vest and you're sweating. You have to change into your workout clothes. You get your heart rate up and you're like, wait, that's kind of the opposite of just like going out for a walk around your neighborhood, which is kind of the intent of walking, right?
Right.
And then it can cause back pain and issues with your like core. I posted about this once a few months ago, and I got very heated responses on both sides. And one person said, I had to go in for back surgery recently, and my doctor told me to stop wearing my weighted vest. And so I did stop wearing it. But now he said I could work back into it if I wanted to. And I'm back up to 5 pounds. And I'm like, why? 5 pounds is nothing. Like, what? Like, I don't even understand, the only time I can see a place for it is if you are doing cardio and you don't want to run, or you don't like, you want to, walk on an incline with your vest because the intent is cardio. That's where I'm like, okay, that's totally valid. If you're doing it to boost bone density, you should be lifting anyway. I kind of think it's a moot point there. If you're doing it to make walks more intense, like, well, what is your walk? Is it cardio? If it's cardio, then that's fine. If your walking is just more daily movement or just activity or a stress reduction technique,
don't stress. Don't add stress.
Don't add the weight and add the stress to it. So those are my thoughts on that one. I know it's a hot take.
No, I appreciate that because it makes a lot of sense. And like we used to, the old analogy would say, like when we were doing diets back in the physique sport days, was like what was the saying? Was like trying to get ready for a physique show, like a bodybuilding show, to lose fat through cardio is like trying to empty a pool with a coffee cup.
Totally.
There's so much water in there. You're not going to do it.
There's way better ways to do that.
Yes. It's like, okay, maybe a few thousand times you walk is the equivalent of 2 strength programs, but
right.
Or just lift the weights.
Yeah.
No, and I did want to hit, I know, I appreciate your time. I know we're getting up on time here. I wanted to hit a couple, and I do want to introduce some of your programs and stuff in a moment, but I want to hit just a couple tips. Like, what are some things, again, I know we're being broad here, but if someone's listening and they're like, all right, like, I like what she's about, I'm gonna start following her, but maybe if I had a couple tips or a couple things that like, hey, this is good, or, try adding this to your program. Some of it you've brought up, but maybe to put a point on some of it.
Let me think. I think really one tip would be, focusing on consistency throughout the entire week or throughout the entire day. And the hardest thing people come across is, trying to be so quote unquote good throughout the week. And they're like, oh, I'm going to have a smoothie for breakfast and chicken on a salad for lunch, and then a protein and greens dinner. And it's like, whoa, you had 800 calories today. It's no wonder by Thursday night and Friday morning, you want to binge your face off, And so having that consistency, including enough calories, enough fiber, protein, but also your favorite foods. I will die on that hill because I'm like, I don't even use the word like free meals, cheat meals, untracked days. We do use that in our program, but me personally, I'll go out to eat throughout the week because I know that my nutrition's on point all the time. Whereas in the past, I was like, eat a cookie on a Monday? Like, no way. It's just like so taboo to have like dessert on a Tuesday. That's a Saturday, Sunday type of thing, But really finding that approach to nutrition and lifestyle that you can have Monday through Sunday is key. And so if that means you have your favorite treat in a small amount every single day, that's going to keep you on track, and it's going to keep your weekends on track, So I will tell people, have 100, 150 calories. Of course, it depends on your calorie intake. If you're on a lower calorie, you might only do 100 calories, 75, couple Hershey Kisses. Maybe it's like I said, a half of a brownie or a small scoop of ice cream, a few bites of ice cream, like something like that can make it feel like you're not on a quote diet, and it can make it easier to stay consistent 7 days of the week, 4 weeks of the month, like long term. Because so many people are like, oh, I did that program, for 2 weeks, and I didn't see 10 pounds lost, so I thought I was failing, And we've even had people that come to us and they'll say, oh, I tried a GLP-1 and it didn't work. We're like, well, what were your results? I lost 16 pounds in 2 months. We're like, what about that
Didn't
isn't
work. Yeah.
working? Like, what? And I mean, I just use that as an example. It's
Sure.
like people's expectations are so high that they
Right.
don't realize that things take a long time. And so you have to find an approach that you can be consistent with long term. So I guess if we're going back to the tips idea, it would be include something you love that maybe previously was forbidden to you except for on the weekends or something,
Sure.
and work on including it in your numbers every day of the week.
Yeah.
And sometimes that permission is like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, like not
Actually,
only can you should.
what is it, like the law of abundance, whatever, right? If you can't have
Yeah,
it, you all of a
you
sudden
want it
crave it
more.
more. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
my wife, ever since I met her, like she's like, you can't tell me I can't have something because then
Yeah,
I'm just gonna like whether
want
it's
it.
diet, whether it's a thing to buy, a trip or whatever.
Yeah,
So I've learned after what are we coming up on? Almost 15, 14?
yeah.
Yeah. So I've learned, just
Can't
she can
tell
have
her
whatever you
that.
want, whatever you
Yeah.
want, whatever you want.
Whatever you want, honey, just go
And then
for it.
she'll
Whatever
come to
you
the
want.
conclusion of like, yeah, we really shouldn't do that. I was like, oh, you don't think we should build a
But
third
that's
house,
the
a
that's
house
the
three times?
point though, is
Yeah.
if it was her idea,
Yeah.
and those are kind of the breakthroughs we try to have with
Right.
clients, is like
Right.
if it's their idea
Right.
and like you can guide them to their own decisions, and then there's so much more ownership there.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Let's see, another tip. I would say, like, for someone who's just starting out, like you said, getting outside and walking, like that's a big thing, especially now we're going into fall and winter. I see people all the time like, well, I didn't hit my steps this week. It's too cold. And I'm like, you're in, maybe California or something. It might be cold. We're in Utah and it's snowing and it's 20 degrees. You bundle up. Like, I don't
Right.
care really how cold. Maybe like Minnesota and like the wind. There's probably some exceptions there, but like you get your steps in. And so
Right.
maybe it's, setting your target, but maybe it's setting an attainable target. If you're currently getting 4,000 to 5,000 steps, try for 6,000 to 7,000. It's always like looking at what you're doing and making small tweaks to make it more optimal. I almost said more better, but better,
Yeah.
more
I get
optimal.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting you brought that up because actually, I can never pronounce his name. Hathor Bjorsen, the big giant. They call him the Mountain. He was the Mountain in
Oh, okay.
the show. Whatever.
Yeah.
So I interviewed his coach a couple years ago, and he talked about because he lives in Iceland,
Oh,
he can't
that
go
sounds
out and
cold.
walk in that. So they had a stationary bike. He's like, he
Yeah.
had his protocol 10-minute walks and he wasn't doing them. So finally, like he's a couple weeks in and he's like, are you not doing these? And he's like,
Uh-huh.
no, I live in Iceland. Like I can't,
Yeah.
and he's like,
Right.
well, you got a bike, like just bike then for 10 minutes. So it's just like
Yes.
thinking of, if you are restricted, there's other
Yeah.
options. Like don't
Well,
be
and
so literal with your coach. Like just talk to
yes.
them and they'll find something else. Right.
Right. And walking pads nowadays are so cheap. I've got
Oh,
one
that's
right
true. Yeah.
behind me. It's a good option. But you're right. Like a bike where you're doing low intensity, just like pedaling on the bike while
Yeah.
you read a book, something like
Walking
that.
pads is a good one. Yeah.
Before I got my walking pad, I would walk the perimeter of my house. And it took me like, I'm talking like into a bathroom, out of a bathroom, literally the perimeter of my house because
Yeah.
it was like a really cold day. And it took me like 10 minutes to do my upstairs and my downstairs and all around a couple times. And I was like, that was my walk,
Yeah.
So there's ways to get it done.
Yeah. No, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hit a couple things really quick as we're kind of winding down here. And just for everyone who's listening in, Trainer Lindsey on Instagram, I'm going to pull up some stuff. If you're on audio, we'll have all this in the show notes, but I did want to share some stuff. And then in a moment, you can verbally talk about it. But
Sure.
so we're showing here, like if you went to her Instagram, a lot of
Mhm.
really good tips, information. And I like how you do this. A lot of, I've seen this from some people and I think it's a smart move, like have it pinned to the top where it's just talking
Yeah.
about your experience.
Sure.
And then, a lot going on. So you have some different supplements you like to use, some
Mhm. Mhm.
challenges, and then some free what are the free programs people can get from you on your link tree?
Yeah, so I've got a free 7-day. I call it a jump start. It's mainly just has a couple meal plans, some workouts. I work with a couple of different supplement companies with Transform in particular. We have a free challenge that has like video-based workout plans. We call it the 10-minute challenge. There's 10-minute workout videos.
Oh, cool.
There's a free app through them, and I'm one of the featured trainers in their workouts. So most of my free stuff is through them. And then I've got lower cost programs in addition to my like higher level coaching.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those looking to, like, if you check out moxiebylindsey.com,
Mhm.
I'm pulling it up right there for those on audio, you can see a lot of the testimonials, the services before, really cool, like before and afters that you have on here, a lot of
Yeah,
different
thank you.
body types, different
Mhm.
lifestyles. So kind of a mixture of all.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of good stuff. And then tell us about your podcast too, because I haven't had a chance to check it out,
Oh, it's not
admittedly,
even,
but
I actually haven't, in total transparency, I haven't updated my link tree in a very long time. So I don't even think my podcast is on there. That's so funny. I didn't even realize that until just now. So yeah, my podcast, it's called the Nourish and Strengthen podcast. Most of my listeners are, again, that 40 to 60-year-old female who's struggling with perimenopause. I've been feeling lately that I need to rebrand my podcast to more perimenopause based, but I haven't done that yet. But yeah, it's all about, food, nutrition, lifestyle, health, wellness, that sort of thing. So if you're listening to this podcast here, I'm sure you'd like mine as well.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be for sure to put everything in the show notes
Cool.
today, of like where, for everyone listening, where you can find Lindsey, her information, her team, her podcast, her free resources, her coaching services, all of the above. Thank you so much again for
Yeah,
joining
thanks
us
for
today.
having
We
me.
really
That was
appreciate
fun.
it. And for everybody listening in, be sure to like, comment, do all the important things that help the channel grow, but also really important, if you have questions, we always say this at the end of each episode, email, DM, comment us, whatever. We
Yeah.
will get them over to Lindsey and link her up
Yeah.
with
I'm
you.
very active on social. I respond to every message. I message every follower, that sort of thing. So
Awesome. So yeah,
yeah.
we appreciate that. So definitely, guys, if you have any other further questions, obviously we cover as much ground as we can in these episodes, but there's a whole lot more that I'm sure Lindsey can help you guys out with. So
Yeah.
thanks again so much. We appreciate
Thank you
it.
for having
Take
me.
care.
Thanks.
We'll see
Yeah.
you.